All right, let's have some fun with this. Ever wonder what would happen if you took the most powerful shinobi in the world and threw them into Silicon Valley? We're talking about swapping kunai for keyboards, missions for meetings. Let's really dig in and ask, what if the crew from Naruto actually tried to run a startup? You heard it right. Because let's be honest, the strategic backstabbing, the intense rivalries, the all-or-nothing gambles, it sounds a lot like the business world, doesn't it? This is the real high-stakes game. So, first things first. Every single startup, big or small, starts with an idea, a pitch. So what exactly is this new company, let's call it Konoha Inc., even selling? What's their big play? Well, the options are kind of wild. They could go straight for Naruto's heart and build the world's fastest ramen delivery service. Or, they could get into the B2B space, crafting custom ninja tools for other villages. They could even offer premium security consulting. But let's be real, the true unicorn idea, it's got to be monetizing their actual jutsus into some kind of groundbreaking tech. And where's the money coming from? The seed funding is unorthodox. You've got Kakashi, who's probably a super savvy angel investor, getting in on the ground floor. And then you have Tsunade, who went on an absolute heater at the casino and decided to just throw her winnings at the company. Talk about a high-risk investment strategy. All right, they've got the cash, they've got the idea. Now they need the people. And this, my friends, is where it all could go spectacularly right, or just become the most entertaining corporate train wreck in history. Which brings us to the big one. The top job. The person who's got to lead the charge and be the face of the company. Who is brave enough to be the CEO of Konoha Inc.? So, let's look at our candidates. On one hand, you have Naruto. He's the ultimate hype man. He could inspire a rock to sell water. The problem, he'd be great at talking about the company, but he probably wouldn't actually, do any of the business stuff. Then there's Sasuke. He would be ruthless. He would hit every quarterly goal, no questions asked. But he'd also probably try to stage a hostile takeover of his own company. Not a great team player. And finally, Shikamaru. He's the genius strategist who could outsmart every competitor on the planet. The only tiny issue is you'd have to convince him that it's not all just a total drag. Okay, the rest of the C-suite comes together pretty well, actually. Sakura is a no-brainer for a combined head of R&D and HR role. She's brilliant, but also has to deal with everyone's problems. You put Rock Lee in charge of sales and marketing, and that infectious, youthful energy is going to sell anything. And Sai, well, his unique artistic vision makes him the perfect, if slightly unsettling, head of design. So the dream team is assembled. Let's see how this group of absolute legends would actually handle the day-to-day grind. This is where the magic and the madness really begins. And boom, the company is a huge success. Orders are pouring in, everyone wants their product. But now they're facing a classic startup crisis. Demand is through the roof, and they can't keep up. How do they scale? Of course, Naruto has a brilliant, game-changing idea. Why go through the hassle of hiring 1,000 employees when he can just make them? One jutsu later, and he's got an instant workforce of 1,000 shadow clones. Problem solved, right? Absolutely not. Oh my gosh, can you imagine the chaos? 1,000 Narutos all answering support calls at once, each one getting distracted, arguing with each other, probably ordering ramen to the office. It would be a complete and total brand catastrophe. This is lesson number 1. You can't just throw shadow clones at a scaling problem. But where they would excel is logistics. Think about it. They could offer 2 delivery tiers. You've got your standard shipping, which is Gaara's sand transport. It's reliable, it handles bulk, it's your basic freight. But then you have the premium option for your VIP clients, Minato's teleportation jutsu. That's for the package that absolutely positively has to be there like yesterday. But not everything can be solved with a cool jutsu. Like, who handles the company credit card? You definitely don't give it to Jiraiya, because if he's in charge of the budget, suddenly all of your R&D funding is mysteriously reallocated to market research, which just happens to take place exclusively at Hot Springs. The burn rate would be legendary. Okay, assuming Jiraiya doesn't bankrupt the company, it's time to think bigger. How does Konoha Inc. stop being a local favorite and become a global shinobi enterprise? It's time to scale. Well, their marketing department would be a fascinating showdown. In one corner, you've got Jiraiya's, let's call them unconventional guerrilla marketing tactics. Super high risk for a questionable reward. And in the other corner, Ino's mind transfer jutsu. It is the most effective hyper-targeted ad campaign imaginable because she literally puts the ad directly into your brain. Terrifying? Yes. Effective? Also yes. And you gotta remember, they aren't operating in a vacuum. You'd have rival companies popping up everywhere. The Cloud Village would probably launch a competitor with better tech. The Sand Village would try to undercut them on security contracts. And what if a dark horse enters the race? A super disruptive, well-funded rogue startup run by the Akatsuki. Suddenly, corporate espionage involves a lot more than just stealing files. So, with rivals closing in from every direction, the pressure is on. What's the endgame for Konoha Inc.? Do they cash out with a big IPO, or do they get eaten alive by a bigger fish? I mean, think about the Akatsuki as a competitor. They're not just trying to steal market share. They're playing a completely different game. They would use genjutsu for industrial sabotage. They do zetsu for corporate infiltration. They aren't trying to beat Konoha Inc. They're trying to absorb it. Or what about a threat from a known player? A hostile takeover bid from Orochimaru. He doesn't want their profits. He wants their intellectual property. He's after their jutsu tech, their R&D team, their secrets. He'd be buying up shares in the dark, trying to take control from the inside. Or maybe they go for the ultimate prize. They go public. An IPO with Sasuke as the face, leveraging that legendary Uchiha name. The hype would be insane. The valuation would be through the roof. But can you just picture him on the Investor Roadshow? The intense, silent staring, the one-word answers. It would be the most awkward and possibly most successful IPO of all time. And really, that's what this all boils down to. The very things that make these characters so incredible as Shinobi, their raw, overwhelming power, their fierce independence, their tendency to solve problems with a giant energy blast, those are the exact same things that would make them an absolute nightmare to manage in a corporate office. Their greatest strength is also their biggest liability. Which brings us to the final, most important question. After all of this, the chaotic genius, the massive potential, the guaranteed HR disasters, I have to ask you, would you put your money into Konoha Inc.? Would you invest? I'll let you think on that.